Hey everyone! Welcome to, not a new deck tech, actually a remake of a very old deck tech, actually the first deck tech I ever did. And that is for my Humans Commander deck. It's actually one of my most viewed videos for my 5-color Humans Commander deck. But, as you can see, there's been some changes to the deck. Notably, it's no longer 5-color humans. I've cut the blue, and I've made enough changes that I figured that there's enough that I should probably do a new deck tech and going over it. And, yeah, so we're just gonna jump into it. So, the first major change from last time was the lack of the color blue. I went from 5-color to 4-color humans for a few reasons. Two main ones. One, I was finding that before I was running General Tazri, and I could have been running Corona for 5 colors, because Tazri actually is a human. Although now also after I switched it, Joda came out, so Joda could work too, but Joda doesn't do that much for humans. But just none of the commanders do that much for humans as a tribe, and having a really solid commander like Saskia does just so much more for the deck than what blue was adding. Because this deck at its core is a just very aggressive, beatdown deck, and that works really well with Saskia, and I don't know, blue isn't all necessarily the super beatdown color. But yeah, so it's blueless humans, and the other reason I changed it is that before, when I made the deck, that was before 5-color humans made its rise in popularity in Modern, and me having this 5-color humans deck was kind of fun. It was like kind of weird. It wasn't like super common. 5-color humans wasn't a common phrase you heard at any discussion of Magic. I mean, it was there, obviously. There were 5-color lists going around for a commander, but it felt unique. And then 5-color humans became one of the most meta decks in Modern, so it stopped feeling unique. So it's like, okay, time to leave the memes and just make this a more functional deck. It has since kind of dropped in my scaling of my favorite deck and most powerful deck. That has been, favorite has been taken by Abzan Life Game. Most powerful, I'm not sure which my most powerful is right now. It depends on the matchup. Probably Vial Smasher or Sidisi at this point. But, yeah, so let's just jump right into this deck tech. So, just out in front, let's talk about humans as a tribe. This is a tribal deck. What do humans do better? And honestly, the best thing that humans do is that they get printed a lot. There's a lot of just incidentally very good humans that you just slide into the deck really easily. Actually need to get new copies of some of the other ones that aren't in this deck, because I've used them to other decks because they're just incidentally good cards. Things like Samut and Hero of Bladehold and things like that, where just they're humans that are also very good cards. So they just have instantly good creatures, but otherwise they're typically small, so you can kind of trigger Mentor the Meek effects, as well as they're very, it's kind of go wide with small creatures and playing out lots of creatures, but at the same time isn't token based, where you're playing out actual creatures, and yeah, there are things that make tokens, but outside of Innistrad blocks, there aren't actually things that make human tokens. Human tokens are really the only thing that happens in the Innistrad block, because it's the only block that seriously mechanically cares about things being human. But just off the bat, we have Saskia the Unyielding, who is the commander for black, red, green, and white, so everything but blue. You get a 3/4 with Vigilance and Haste, and when it enters battlefield, or as it enters battlefield, choose a player. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, it deals that much damage to the chosen player. So essentially, she comes on the board, she says, fuck you, and you can, she's really good at a lot of anti-aggro strategies, because if you have a player who has like they have their ghostly prisons and propagandas and other kind of effects, you just name them and then you attack other people and you get to get in at them as well. Or if there's another creature heavy deck and you'll have hard attacking into them, you can choose them. Honestly, I rarely play Saskia on turn 4, just because I don't want to make enemies super fast, because this is a very easy way to make an enemy, being like, yeah, no, fuck you, in particular. But that said, I also want to have more information about the board and like who I actually am threatened by. Yeah. And one final note about Saskia is that she is extremely hot. Just look at her. Look at those arms. Oh. I'm not gay. What? No. Alright, but so the first section of the deck is kind of like this go wide thing where we want to make a lot of creatures and kind of go wide, both in tokens and non-tokens alike. This deck does run a lot of card draw. Because it's useful just to have card draw for, because I'm not making tokens and not recurring things a lot, but I need a way to get lots of card advantage, because I want to pump out, like, my very small creatures, but I obviously need to draw those creatures, so, and because I'm mostly focused in white and green in this deck, like, by and large, with, like, tad bits of black and red, white and green a little bit. White and green aren't like the super most card draw heavy thing, so I maybe a bit overcompensate, but oh well. Come on, there we go. So first up at this kind of like go wide is just increasing devotion. This is one of the few like really solid cards that actually gives you human tokens. It is 3 white to put 5/1/1 white human creature tokens on the battlefield. But it also has flashback for 9 that gets you 10 tokens. Obviously, this is like, it's not bad, but it's like, it helps you just spit out a board late game, like post board wipe or something like that. It spits you out more of a board. It triggers things like Mentors of the Make. It triggers things like Dolly's Lieutenants and other things like that, where it's just like, in worst comes to worst, it's a great way to just get out a bunch of chump blockers if you just need time to rebuild. But just a really solid card. Like, in a sense, like, this is just a vanilla creature in a lot of senses, but it just does enough that it's a very good vanilla creature. It's a vanilla creature that actually makes 15 vanilla creatures over the course of 14 mana. But, yeah. Next one is a land, but I reserved the land section of the deck, but, honestly, this is a deck I probably should cut back the number of lands I'm running, just because the curve is not very high. That's Westville Abbey. This is a good, like, late game mana sink, because it's a land, but you can also pay 5 tap it, pay 1 life to make a human cleric, which just triggers off a lot of the other things that care about having small creatures and things like that. Later on, if you can sacrifice 5 creatures to also create Ormondal, although I rarely do that. I usually just want to have that engine to keep making stuff. Although I will make Ormondal if it was a 9/7 flying life leak indestructible haste. If the board's just if like I need to like get through like a flying creature or something like that to finish out the game. But also just like an 18-point life swing is nothing to sneeze at if I can, and getting the 5 creatures to transform it is actually not that difficult for this deck. Next up we have Handwear Militia Captain, who is a 2/2 for 2, which is not great, but if at the beginning of your upkeep, if I have 4 more creatures, which again isn't hard for this deck, I get Westville Cult Leader, whose power and toughness are equal to the number of creatures you control, so it benefits from going wide, but also it makes another 1/1 black and white human cleric, so she just starts spitting out more humans, so that's quite useful. Next up is Sigarda Heron's Grace, which is 3 blue and a white. She's a 4/5 flying who gives me and humans you control have hexproof. So kind of like a worse Shalai in that sense. It will only use my humans, but I'm pretty much only running humans, so she's Shalai in that sense. instead of you put counters and everything, I can pay to exile a card from my graveyard, and this deck doesn't really want to be using that much of my graveyard, but turn all my cards in my graveyard into 1/1 humans. So another good like late game mana sink, just like Siddhartha, like start exiling my graveyard and things like that. So solid creature. Next up we have Hanware Garrison, who is 2 in a red for a 2/3 that whenever it attacks it makes 2 1/1 human creatures. I'm running pretty much most of the Innistrad human token makers that aren't terrible, just because getting tokens is kind of useful and I'm struggling for them as it is, just to be able to go wide. I don't have the matching one that if you get the land and it melds with it to create the thing that pumps out Eldrazi, because that's just not what this deck is looking to do. I want specifically the humans. Next up we got Chad, ally of Zendikar. He's actually most of the point, like you can, it's 4 mana for 4 loyalty planeswalker. He is a Gideon, so he can turn into a human, so it fits thematically there. Or you can make 2/2 White Knight ally tokens, which aren't humans, but it doesn't matter. Honestly, I mostly just play him as an anthem, and situationally we'll like try to keep him around to pump out like White Knights or whatever. But honestly, this is just an expensive, glorious anthem in this deck. I should really move him to a different deck. Next up is Ulvenwald Mysteries, which is 2 and a green to have whenever enchantment, which whenever a non-token creature you control dies, investigate, and that makes a clue that you can pay 2 and sacrifice it to draw a card. And whenever you sacrifice a clue, you get a 1/1 human soldier creature token. So it turns, because like I said, a lot of my creatures are going to be non-tokens. Like we've actually already gone through most of the token creators in this deck. So there's gonna be a lot of like non-token creatures dying, and it turns them into card draw to get into other cards and into tokens later on. So it's just a good little value engine. Valdez Lieutenant, really an all-star of this deck. She is a 2 mana 1/1. You will know her from the modern deck, but when there's battlefield, you put a +1/+1 counter on each other human you control, and whenever human enters battlefield under your control, you get a +1/+1 counter on her. So she pumps your team and then grows over time. Yeah, no, she's really good. I shall say that we are now moving into the kind of like payoffs for going wide and things like that, and small creatures. Next up is Cavalry Pegasus, which is a 2 mana 1/1 flyer, but when it attacks, it gives all my other humans flying too. So it really helps me get in, because this is a beatdown deck, and getting that evasion is very nice, and making all of my little guys unblockable all of a sudden is really hard for my opponents to effectively block that. So, you should also note that a lot of these creatures I'm looking at are actually notably, okay, Siddhartha is not, but they are notably 2 power or less. There's a few that aren't, but we move to the next one, which cares about it, which is Alesha, who smiles at death, who is a 3 mana 3/2 human warrior with first strike, and whenever she attacks, you may pay Orzhov. If you do, I can return a creature of power 2 or less to the battlefield, so it helps recur a lot of those good creatures. So it helps me recur my Thales lieutenants, my Westfall cult leaders, and so on and so forth. So just like get really, really well done. Honestly, just chaining Valdez lieutenants with her just feels amazing. Next we have Ravos Soultender, who is 3 white and a black for a 2/2 flyer that also anthems everything. And at the beginning of my upkeep, I can return a creature from my graveyard to your hand. So Ravos kind of does a bit of everything this deck wants to do. He's pumping my guys and recurring things to like get my like good creatures I want like to be on the battlefield. So, and yeah, also really cool art. I love the art on this guy. I love all the partner commanders. I think the partner commanders are one of my favorite mechanics ever since I started playing this game. It's just such well done. I hope they bring it back soon. Next we have Obelisk of Erd, which is a 6-mana artifact, which has Convoke, and when it enters battlefield, choose a creature type. Hint, I choose humans, and it gives all my creatures +2/+2. Normally I'm paying like not 6 mana for those, I'm usually paying like 4 or less by just having tokens or whatever, or small creatures that are attacking anyway, and just helps pump that team, and +2/+2 is really solid, and I'm like having this really wide team and whatnot. It is kind of a nomba with things like Mentor the Meek, but oh well. Next up is Hamlet Captain, which is a 2/2 for 2, so it's a bear, but whenever it attacks or blocks, it also pumps all my humans, so it's like kind of like a situational lord. But yeah. Custody Soul Color. It is a 3-mana 1/2 with melee, so whenever it attacks, it gets +1/+1 for each opponent you're attacking. And whenever it attacks, I can return target creature card with converted mana cost X or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of players who attacked with a creature this combat. So it's one of those things where it's like, he attacks, he automatically gets +1/+1, so he attacks as a 2/3 minimum. And say I just like point 2 other 1/1 tokens, even if they die, he becomes a 4/5 and all of a sudden attacker, and all of a sudden also I get to recur another 3-drop from my graveyard, so he just does a lot of really good just like value engine chain in that, because also this deck is a lot of low CMC stuff and he just helps recur that. Also I really like the melee mechanic. I really hope they have made Conspiracy 3, because like Conspiracy 3 2 didn't do very well because of its timing, but Conspiracy 2 was so much fun. I loved Conspiracy 2. Next we have Metallic Mimic, which is a 2-mana 2/1. When it enters battlefield, choose creature type. Guess what? I choose humans. But it's causes all those creatures that type to enter the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter. So another kind of like take on a lord, like the construct that does it. I don't remember its name off the top of my head. I don't have it. Next up we have Always Watching, which is a 3-mana enchantment, which gives non-token creatures you control +1/+1 and vigilance. Honestly, once it rotates out of standard and stops being $1 million, I'll probably pick up, replace this with or just add it in addition to this, the one that's the tribal one from Ixalan, Radiant Destiny. Just because this deck is kind of like creature focused, or like non-token creature focused. There's still a fair amount of non-token creatures that don't get advantage from this, and getting the City's Blessing isn't as hard, so kind of like the other one is strictly better. But I do like these kind of effects. But yeah. Triumph of the Hordes. This is one of the more unfair cards I have in this deck. It's a 4-mana sorcery that gives until end of turn creatures you control +1/+1 and trample and infect. Unfortunately, Saskia does not double the infect damage. Actually doesn't. Actually, oh yes, no, it does work with that. Sorry, because it isn't. It does it properly. It's not loss of life, but yeah. So this is just a way to just like end the game quickly. Just because if you don't know about infect, you lucky soul. But if you get creatures that deal damage in the form of infect damage, deal damage in poison counters, and if you get 10 poison counters, you lose the game. So this is a card that essentially says all your opponents have now 10 life, and all your creatures get +1/+1 and trample. Have fun killing them with, obviously, your horde of creatures that you can already probably kill them with. It's just a great way to, like, end games if you need to. And, you know, sometimes this deck just needs to end the game, and Triumph of the Hordes, as dirty as it is, does the work. Next we have Adriana, Captain of the Guard, which is a 5 mana, 3 red and white for a 4/4 human knight who is also extremely hot. Like that angle, like looking up at her, she's like surly look on her face, and like she has a big sword. She's a lady in big armor without like strict boob plates. She has a great horse. No. But onto what she does. But she's a 4/4 with melee, so kind of what the Custodian Soul Color had, so she attacks as a 5/5. But it also gives all my other creatures melee. So all my little like 1/1 creature tokens, they also have melee. So if I attack like send 3 1/1s at each of my opponents, those are all now sending out 3 4/4s at all my opponents, which is a really sizable kind of like anthem boost. Like even if I'm throwing away a small creature whenever I attack, just to give to pump the rest of my team, that's a lot. That can add up a lot of damage, and she's honestly one of the top performers in this deck. And honestly, I feel like she's really kind of short under. Like I felt like a lot of the Conspiracy 2 like cards and new mechanics and stuff have really like been looked over. And when next time you're building a deck, look at the list of cards they added in Conspiracy 2. There's a lot of really good ones. Next up is Heron Grace's Champion, which is a 2 green-white for a 3/3 with flash and lifelink. And when it ETBs, other humans you control get +1/+1 and lifelink until end turn. So you can use this as kind of like he kind of works as a combat trick to like pump up your team. It causes a life swing. You can win some combats you weren't supposed to. You know, he's all right. Mostly, for the most part, he's a 3/3 lifelink that also comes with like a pretty sizable life swing on top of that. I'm just now realizing, since I've seen this art bigger, I always thought that his shield in this art was just like a stupidly large hat, but now I realize that's a shield and that makes a lot more sense. I thought he just had like a cartoonishly large Cathar hat for some reason. Next we have Iroas, God of Victory, which is a 4-mana 7/4 indestructible god. As long as your devotion to red and white is less than 7, Iroas is in a creature. That said, this actually deck has a lot of double white cards, so actually he not too uncommonly becomes a creature. And creatures you control have menace, so they're harder to block, and prevent all damage that would be dealt to attacking creatures you control. This combos really well with like the few melee creatures I have, so I'm no longer throwing away my creatures as I attack at someone. And yeah, no, it just Iroas does a lot of work. With kind of just like protecting my creatures, making them attack so much better. And yeah, no. Also, he looks cool. Like, you want like a giant centaur man in the clouds cheering you on as you go into battle? Of course you do. Next few cards are talking about like protecting myself and protecting my creatures, because this deck draws a lot of hate, and because it's an aggro deck. It's a very beatdown. It wants to it comes out of the gates punching, and that paints a target on your back because you're coming out of the gates punching. So first up we have Boros Charm, which is just a red and a white, which you can deal 4 damage to target player. You're not doing that. Permanents you control get indestructible until turn. That's the mode you care about. Or target creature gets double strike. It can be cute in some situations to like get a kill if you need to, but mostly this is red-white. Permanents you control get indestructible until turn. So this is really sweet against board wipes, Armageddons. Yeah, I'm not running on Armageddon, but it is sweet against that. But yeah, no, Boros Charm is just, it helps me protect my team. Plain and simple. Kindred Boon, which is 2 white for an enchantment. When it is available, choose a creature type. I choose humans. And you may 1 white to put a divinity counter onto a creature of the chosen type. And creatures with divinity counters have indestructible. So it lets me kind of like pay money to like make my creatures indestructible. So I lock down like my really important ones like Adriana, Thalia's Lieutenant, and things like that. We're just like kind of like making that. That said, I often won't actually choose Saskia, because oftentimes I will want to recast Saskia to choose a different person. But that's just someone. I like to do. Also, like, look at that art. Like, she's, first of all, like, riding a reindeer, like, going along, like, well, they're like a pack of, like, people riding reindeer, like, going through, like, there's the Aurora Borealis, she's, like, reaching up and, like, I guess, like, touching and, like, using magic from the Aurora Borealis. It's awesome art. Next up, we got Heroic Intervention, which is just 1 green for instant. Permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. It's just another Boros charm, essentially. Well, that does work with, like, target removal, too, so if you're trying to, like, if they're, like, trying to, like, English and making one of my creatures or something, I can protect that, too. Next up is Conqueror's Veil, which is a 2-mana artifact, which gives equipped each creature +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control. So if, like, Saskia is on the field board, this is a +4/+4. So it makes Saskia like a 7/8. But as long as it attached to a creature, your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. That's the important part. I mean, making a big creature is also good. But making sure my opponents can't cast creature spells is super nice. And just, like, helps protect me, like, not getting, like, Cyclonic Rift, like, in response to declaring attackers and things like that, and can really help just, like, make me attack in peace and go for those final swings without having to worry about things. It makes it a lot easier to do things like, Tramp the Hordes and other kind of, like, big swingy attacks and things like that, and know that I'm going to be safe and not going to, like, lose on the backswing. Next up, we're in, like, the kind of, like, this section of card advantage. First up, we have Thorn the Black Rose, which is a 4-mana 1/3 of Death Touch, but she's mostly there just to activate the Monarch mechanic. I put a lot of Monarch cards into my decks just because I really like the Monarch mechanic, and yeah, I want to use it in all the decks I can. And this one I like because it's just, like, sure, she isn't the greatest, like, creature for that. I would like to change her to an actual Marchesa. That is something I need to do. But, Death Touch is a relevant ability, and I like it, especially if I'm being targeted because I am a beatdown deck. So just having a spare Death Toucher holding back can help prevent unwanted aggression. And I love the Monarch mechanic, and this deck is a good job of, like, not necessarily holding the monarchy, but, like, getting it back. And because this deck is such a beatdown, it almost deters people from wanting to take the monarchy from me, because they'll know that, yeah, I'll be swinging a wall of humans at them next turn if you take it, because I want that Monarch mechanic. Next up, we have Dustwatch Recruiter, which is a 2-mana 2/2. But you can also pay 2 and a green to look at the top 3 cards of your library, and you may put a creature card from enter your hand. So, kind of, like, helps me just dig for creatures. So, card draw as well as, like, good card selection and things like that. So, he's also a werewolf, so he transforms into a creature that isn't super relevant and makes, like, your creatures cheaper, which isn't super relevant for this deck. Next up is Thalia's Lancers, which is 3 white for a 4/4 first strike. This is one I'm actually thinking about removing because this deck used to be a lot more legend-centric. But when you're Battlefield, you may search your library for a legendary card, reveal it, and put in your hand. Oftentimes this will just be finding Adriana. Yeah, I mean, it's a 5-mana 4/4 first strike that also gets me a card, and gets me a card that's, like, relevant to what I want. But it's like back when I was running, like, all 5 colors, I was running things like, my brain just died. But this deck just isn't running as many legendary creatures anymore. Like, the main one is Adriana, but I'm planning on switching that out. Although there are some legendaries, I want to get, like, Sidar Kondo and stuff for this deck, but yeah. Next up is Disciple of Bolas, which is a 4-mana 2/1. When it enters battlefield, sacrificing the creature, you gain X life and draw X cards for X is that creature's power. I cannot tell you the number of times that I've played Sacrifice Disciple of Bolas, and the main benefit being able to kill Saskia so I can recast her, while also drawing 3 cards and gaining 3 life. So yeah, no, I often just sacrifice Saskia to Disciple. it's just kind of like a way to get her off the board and recast her and choose another player. So, yeah, no. It's just a nice little value card or like a creature that's not doing much. At the bare minimum, she usually can sacrifice a token and like cycle herself, so it's not the end of the world. Next up is Mentor the Meek, which is 3 and a white for 2/2. Whenever a creature of power 2 or less enters battlefield under control, which happens a lot, you may pay 1. If you do, draw a card. This can just run away, just like with the card advantage. I usually am much more constrained by mana than I am by actual like casting cost. This is one I'm actually testing out a little bit. It's kind of like I'm thinking about, at this point, although I am cutting it, it's essentially acting as a budget Eternal Witness, because I need to pick up an Eternal Witness. But I'm testing out Midnight Scavengers, which is a 5-mana 3/3. When enters battlefield, you may turn to a creature card with convert mana cost 3 or less, which is almost all of my most relevant creatures from a graveyard to your hand. So it's a human that like kind of recurs creatures, but I have not been impressed by it, and I've just been kind of having it in here for kind of like testing purposes and figuring out if I want to run it. And so far, I think the answer is no. Next up is Sunforger, a card I need to pick up some more copies of, because it's honestly, Sunforger goes in almost any deck that has creatures and runs red and white. It's a 3-mana equipment with equip 3, and it gets crit creature +4/+0. And you may pay red and a white to unattach it from the creature, and you may search your card for a red or white instant card with converted mana cost 4 or less, and cast the card without paying its mana cost. Then shuffle your library. So largely this thing will do things. It'll grab Boros Charm if I need to protect my creatures quick. It'll grab a Path to Exile if I need to path something. It'll grab like any sort of like cheap removal and things like that. But just kind of like the utility of being able to grab just almost anything off of this. If you're not, it's just like super useful, and just the fact that it's both casting for free and a tutor, and giving something +4/+0 is like no laughing matter. Like that's a real solid boost. It's dumb with Samut. Like it's real dumb with Samut. But yeah. Next we have Seasons Past, which is a 6-mana sorcery, which return any number of cards of different converted mana costs from your graveyard to your hand, and put Seasons Past from your bottom of its owner's library. So oftentimes it'll be a 6-mana, like, draw 5 or 6 in this deck, so it'll do a lot of work to just kind of, like, cycle back things. Also, just gorgeous art. Just, very nice. Next up is a similar type card, which is Wildest Dreams, which is just X green, return X cards from your graveyard to your hand, exile Wildest Dreams. So it just helps me recur things that have died. It's good, like a good rebuild after board wipe card. Next up is Conqueror's Galleon, which is a 4-mana, 2/10 vehicle with crew 4. Whenever it attacks, exiled into combat, return to a battlefield transformed at your control. So, crew 4 is not hard for this deck, because it is a very creature-heavy deck, and the creature itself is not really what I care about. But when it flips, it becomes Conqueror's Foothold, which taps for colorless, and has, I say this for the but like, the color composition on this art is just beautiful, of like the purples and the oranges and the sun, with like the fire out of there. Oh, beautiful. We also may pay 2 and tap it to loot. You may pay 4 and tap it to just draw, or 6 and tap it to just recur something for your graveyard. So it's it's just a real value engine. Yeah. Next up is Creeping Renaissance. Like I said, I run a lot of card advantage in this deck because I need to get through my cards to cast more creatures, because I am very much creature heavy and I want to be casting out multiple creatures a turn. So, but Creeping Renaissance, which is choose a permanent type, return all cards of the chosen type from your graveyard to your hand. This is usually creature, and but it also has flashback for 7 mana. So gets back all that stuff once I'm there. Shamanic Revelation, which is 3 green and 8 for draw a card for each creature you control, and you gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or greater. The Ferocious doesn't matter as much, but just draw a creature card for each creature control. This can draw a lot of cards in this deck because it gets a fair number of creatures out of the battlefield. And you pick up more Shamanic Revelations. They go into a lot of decks. Ambition's Cost. This is just a 4-mana draw 3, lose 3. Like sometimes you just need cards quick and simple, fast. And it does that. Lifecrafter's Bestiary. Again, Bestiary. Not Bestiary. A lot of people say that. There's no A in the first part. It's Bestiary. It just bugs me when people call it a Bestiary, because others, like Bestiary comes a lot in fantasy, but it's like, no, it's not Bestiary, it's Bestiary. It's word from medieval times. Look it up. It's a 3-mana artifact. At the beginning of your upkeep, scry 1. And whenever you cast a creature card, you may play green if you draw a card. So, card selection, and also helping me just like cycling cards through, it gives kind of like a Mentor of the Meek type effect. So, yeah. And it's Pokedex. So, next part is just removal. We have Utter End, which is just a 2 white and a black for instant, exile target non-land permanent. It's pretty much, it's an Orzhov staple. There's not much to say. Its cousin, Anguish of Making, 2 white black, instant, exile target non-land permanent, you lose 3 life. Pretty simple, straightforward. Then Path to Exile. Just pretty simple, stable, 1 white, instant, exile for a creature, its controller tutors a land. Ulvenwald Tracker. This is one I'm actually thinking about cutting. There's a lot of ones I wanted to cut in the stack, but but I figured I kind of might want to actually talk about it and not have a perfectly tuned deck for this one, because kind of going through my reasoning and talking about I've identified this as an underperformer in this deck. And Ulvenwald Tracker is one of those where it's 1 green for 1/1, and you pay 1 green to have it fight another have target creature you control fight another creature. It's just that a lot of my creatures are so small they don't fight very well. And obviously I can have Saskia fighting some small guys that are causing me trouble, but oftentimes this just isn't doing quite enough for me. I probably will move it to dragons or something where fighting is a lot better. Speaking of tap kill a thing, this is a much better version of that. It's Royal Assassin. It's a 3-mana 1/1 that taps to destroy target tap creature. This just creates a very I like what this does politically, because all of a sudden you're essentially just pointing a gun to everyone's creatures and be don't attack me or I'll just Royal Assassin you, or do what I say or I'll Royal Assassin you. And it gives you a lot of political leverage with that. Or it gets removed immediately. But either way, Royal Assassin. Next up is Destructive Tampering. I like this card in a lot of aggro decks, but it's because it's just very its 2 modes are very different but very flexible. It's 2 in a red for either destroy target artifact, which is pretty relevant. I mean, paying 2 in a red at sorcery speed is not what we want to be doing for that. Or creatures without flying can't block this turn. So in a sense, it gives all your creatures flying. Which can help just finish up games and things like that. And the fact that it does both of those, normally I'm casting this on Destroy Target Artifact mode, although I've actually won enough games with it on the other mode. That yeah, it's fun. It's one of those ones that'll probably I'd be willing to switch out, but I've been happy with it so far. It's a great for budget magic card. Then we have Manic Vandal, which is a 3-mana 2/2 warrior, human warrior. So it's a human that enters battlefield, destroys an artifact. So it's a body on what I need. He gets recurred easily with all of my other recursion cards, so yeah. And War Priest of Thune, which is the same thing, except a little bit cheaper, and destroys artifacts. Not artifacts, enchantments. Forsake the Worldly. I run this almost all my white decks. 2 and a white for instant, exile target artifact or enchantment, and it cycles for 2. It's just the fact that it exiles and you don't need it, it cycles for 2. 3 mana for an instant speed version of this effect isn't terrible. It's just all those things. It hits Theros Gods. which is very nice. But yeah. Berserk, which happened here is removal, because I have this random Berserk lying around. I don't want to use it. It's not, so it doesn't sit in a binder. But, like, I'm not running, like, Vintage Infect. What am I running, or Legacy Infect? What am I running Berserk for? But, it's a 1-minute instant. Cast Berserk only before the combat damage step. Target creature gets trample and plus X plus O until end of turn, where X is its power. At the beginning of next step, destroy that creature if it attacked this turn. It doesn't say you actually have to attack your creature. Where I often will do this if there's a big threatening creature on the board, and they're attacking someone else, I'll cast Berserk on it. It doubles their power. It gives them trample. They do a boatload of damage to another player, and they have to again. It gets destroyed at end of turn. I mean, that's just a win-win situation for me. Not win-win for them, but it's really just like win-win, lose in situation. But also if I need to, it's like, and also Saskia can hold it, like, that all of a sudden, like, if there's only one player left, that's all of a sudden Saskia's swinging in for 12, without any other boosts. So, yeah. Next section is just having, like, my creatures get in. Like, a lot of humans don't have evasion and things like that. And these are just things that help me get my creatures in. So first up we have Audric Master Tactician, which is 2 white for a 3/4 with first strike. Whenever he and at least 3 other creatures attack, which is used most of the time, you may choose what creatures block this combat. Nope, I'm still in removal phase, because this actually works as removal. Sorry. You may choose how blocks are done. And having 4 creatures attack is not hard for this deck. But essentially, then all of a sudden I can like either just let all my guys through, or position all my stuff in front of everyone, and like just like, oh, I'll eat your creature and your creature and your creature, and he's himself is a 3/4 first strike, so it's not like he's like having trouble. Also, he has a rad sword, so yeah. I'm only running a couple wipes in this. First up is Hallowed Burial, which puts all creatures on the bottom of their owner's library. I'm actually thinking about switching this out for one that just destroys creatures, because I do like to have creatures in my yard for this deck. But that does get around nicely with like indestructible creatures and things like that. And then I also have Fumigate, which I honestly think is one of the best like non-exiling board wipes in the format, which is destroy all creatures. You gain 1 life for each creature destroyed this way. It's also one of the saddest ones, those poor gremlins. And the final section we have is just, I have a couple miscellaneous cards, but one is Lightning Greaves, because Lightning Greaves, like this is a creature-based deck, of course I'm running Lightning Greaves. And Authority of the Consuls, which is, it just helps my creatures get in a little bit more. It's 1 white for an enchantment. Creatures your opponents control enter battlefield tapped. And it also gives me a life buffer, because whenever a creature enters battlefield under opponent's control, I gain a life. So it kind of like gives me like a buffer, as well as like makes it harder for them to lay down blockers. So, and I'm happy for it. And it's like 1 mana, so it's like not a huge mana investment. So yeah. Next section we have is just ramp. And first up we got a Soul Ring, actually a really cool Altered Soul Ring that I won at GPCL from like the Cosplaying Commander tournament, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, I actually need to like actually ask who did this altar, but it looks cool. Yeah. Chromatic Lantern, because I should probably switch that to a deck, like my 5-color deck, but that's it. It's just a solid ramp card. I should probably do better in my greenless deck, my 4-color greenless deck, because that one has trouble fixing mana. But it honestly, the best thing that this does is just removes the headache of having to tap your mana, and just like being like, oh look, I don't have to pay attention to what lands I'm tapping now, because it makes all your lands tap for any color. Also, this card's like $15 now. Then Fellower Stone, because it is kind of like it is a 4-color deck, so this usually taps 7 for several colors that I want. Farseek, because again, it's a 4-color deck. Rampant Growth because it is a commander deck and it's running green. Shaman of the Forgotten Ways, which is 2 and a green for a human shaman. You can tap to add 2 mana of any combination to only cast creature spells, which doesn't mind. But you also can pay 10 or 11 and tap it to make each creature's life total become the number of creatures he or she controls. Activate this ability only if creatures you control have total power 8 or greater. So usually when I want to activate this, my creatures have power 8 or greater. But normally this means if I'm activating this, it means Lily wins the game because she makes all your life totals low and then kills you with my creatures. Because I have at least 8 power on the board. Yeah! No, real solid, biorhythm effect. I actually have a foil biorhythm, and I was really excited about it because this should go in a deck. And then I learned that biorhythm is banned in EDH. Next up is Krosan Restorer, which is 2 and a green for a 1/2 druid who looks really nice, and I'd love to cosplay her because that outfit is amazing. That said, she would not be recognized. People did not recognize, I only had about 50% recognition rate at GP Seattle as Flip Liliana, and that's a planeswalker from recent years. No one would get Krosan Restorer unless they personally run Krosan Restorer in an EDH deck. But you can tap to untap a land, but if I have 7 more cards in my graveyard, I can untap up to 3 target lands. So she early game rams me normally. She is a human, she's an Oracle text human, but she rams you a fair amount, once you get to late game. Also she looks cool, and I'm gay. Next up is Cryptolithrite. It's just a 2-mana enchantment that turns all my creatures into mana rocks. Honestly, I love this card. This card is amazing. It honestly goes into every deck that runs creatures and is running green. Just turning all your creatures into mana rocks just can give you so much mana and so much flexibility. Also fixes your mana. And finally we have Herald's Horn, which is a 3-mana artifact. When you're in battlefield, choose a creature type. Creature spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. And actually, since this deck wants to be casting multiple creatures a turn, that's actually quite beneficial because of sure, making your things cost 1 less is ramp and everything. But, when I'm casting wanting to cast 2 and 3 drops, that significantly increases the number of cards I can do. And then for your upkeep, you may look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal them and put it in your hand. So it also gives you card advantage on top of that to help you just spam out more humans. Now the final part is lands. This is running my pretty much standard budget 4-color mana base. I keep saying I will do my video on these eventually, but not today. First up we got just 4 Trilands, so Jungle Shrine, Savage Lands, Sandstep Citadel, and Nomad's Outpost. 4 Vivid Lands, so Vivid Grove, Vivid Meadow, Vivid Crag, and Vivid Marsh. Then the standard budget fetches, so Evolving Wilds. Okay, it's running this Evolving Wilds, but I do have a minor Innistrad themed deck, and I really want to get my favorite Evolving Wilds for all my decks, which is this one, the Innistrad Evolving Wilds, or Dark Ascension one, and it's just it's so beautiful. It's these crumbling ruins, vines and stuff, and it's the Gothic Innistrad architecture, and it's just yes. Quote from Thalia, yeah. Terramorphic Expanse, Ash Barrens, Blighted Woodland, Krosan Verge, Shimmering Grotto, just random, or Command Tower. I don't think I put this into the slideshow. But also Caves of Koilos, just because it's a random untapped pan land. Then we stop being budget for a moment for the mana base, and Cavernous Souls. This is most of the price of the deck. I did 1 Modern Masters 2017 draft, and it was amazing. Cavernous Souls, Marshflax, and a Goblin Guide. Oh, what a great draft. Budget Cavern Souls, Unclaimed Territory, Path of Ancestry, which I hope they reprint soon because it's a very good card, and it's very expensive, but it goes in almost every commander deck that isn't monocolor. Okay, 2-color decks may not want it, but like 3 or above, this is great. It's essentially kind of like a tri-land that also, at minimum, lets you scry when you cast your commander. So like, if your deck would run a tri-land, you should run Path of Ancestry. It's a strict upgrade, and lets you scry. It lets you scry more if you have incidental creatures that even if you're not a tribal deck, like, sure, like if your commander is like a human, surely you gotta have incidental humans in your deck somewhere. You also get to scry on them, and things like that. And Exotic Orchard, because again, this is a 4-color deck, so this is usually tapping for at least 3 colors. And then finally we have our basic lands, which I am running the unstable lands because they are gorgeous. That said, I really want them to make full art lands for like all the planes. I love what they did with the Amaket model, which was like the 3-in-1 model for the basic lands, where 3 were like the normal art ones, and then we had 1 full art for all of them. And that was so cool, and it was like really nice because it like gave the cool effect without like taking the shine out from Battle or from Zendikar for like it being a full art plane. But just like, go back to the 1-in-4 model. Like, I want to have like cool full art lands that aren't that, but I'm rambling now. So I'm just running 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 plains, 2 swamps, 2 mountains, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 forests. So, yeah, so gorgeous, so gorgeous. And that is the deck. The deck list, as always, is in the description below. And let me know what you think. Like, how do you like the deck? How do you like its changes if you watched the first video? And, yeah. So, in terms of, like, this is still one of my favorite decks, like, even if it isn't my most favorite deck anymore. And, I don't know, it's a cool theme. I love Innistrad itself, and, like, because humans, like, Innistrad is playing that actually mechanically cares about humans. Like, I love the human sub-themes and everything, and, like, all that works really well, and I love Innistrad. Yeah. But, I also like the playstyle where it's, like, it's go wide, but it's not, like, strictly, like, token. It's not, like, a restack, and, yeah, it's a lot of fun. I like the whole trope of just, like, humanity, like, struggling against darkness and stuff like that, and I'm a sucker for those tropes, and, yeah. Yeah, well, let me know if you have any ideas for suggestions for this deck, like what I should put in here, or anything I'm missing. Granted, I do play pretty budget, so unless I have an expensive card, I'm not usually putting expensive cards in here. Like, I know I need to, like, pick up, like, a Mare of Averbrook and things like that, but, haven't gotten around to it. But yeah, no. The next new deck I'm making is I'm currently working on 4-color lands, but that should be out probably, like, another month or so. So I'm not gonna have another pull for like my next deck yet until that one comes out. But I have a list 5 miles long of the decks I want to build. And there's a few others I want to redo videos of, like, in the not too distant future. This is the one that's changed the most, that I'm like, I want to do new deck on them. If nothing else, I think it's better to have like the better visuals on them than me like trying to awkwardly pull them up. Okay, that was a bad example because this is a forest and it's very obvious that it is a forest. Yeah, well, that is about it for this video. I hope you have a wonderful night, and may your starry smile upon you.